Look, as an insurance broker, you have to ask questions of your clients and prospects that get you the underwriting details you need. But if that's all you do, you're going to sound like every other insurance broker. The key is asking questions that feel personal, that show real interest in their business and their story. And when you frame your questions around the things that they care about, like their history, their revenue streams, their culture, their talent, and their vision, you're not only going to get the information you need, but you're going to get them to open up in a way that is natural and conversational. Let me show you how to do it. The first thing you can do if you're talking with the founder is ask about the history of the business. Ask how they started it. You'll learn so much from that one question. For example, one of my clients runs recovery programs. He buys homes and he converts them into recovery houses. When I asked him about his history, he told me he'd actually written a whole book about it. After coming out of prison, he had nowhere to live. He ended up in an apartment with no furniture and he had rats crawling over him at night. And it was nearly impossible for him to stay clean in that environment. The experience drove him to start a recovery program. And so here's the interesting part. He got his first house through an investor because he had no money himself. The investor looked at this guy and said, I believe in you. I'm going to give you the money. Go make it happen. And that's still his model today. He'll buy a house, he'll renovate it, and he'll put a recovery program in there. And then he'll repeat it. He'll repeat it. So, one simple question about the history of the business not only gives an emotional story about the founder, it also tells you exactly what the business looks like right now. The second thing you need to probe is how does the business make money? What are the revenue streams? So you just got to ask, how do you generate your money? Who pays you? That one series of questions can take you down a lot of different trails. Some owners will say they've got three or four or five different revenue streams, and that's where you can dig in. Can you break that down for me by percentage? Which of those streams is most profitable for you? And do you have any single customers that account for more than 10% of your income? So, for example, a home health agency might tell you that, oh, yeah, we generate 50% of our revenue from companion care, 40% from personal care, and 10% for people that have Alzheimer's. Now, if I tell an underwriter that they provide care for people with Alzheimer's, alarms are going to go off because they're going to be worried that that indicates there is skilled nursing. But if I can explain it's only 10% of the business and walk them through the actual product mix and service mix, whether it's private pay or insurance, I'm giving them a much more accurate picture of the risk. And here's another example. I was working with the restoration contractor that does mold remediation work, which that sets off alarm bells for underwriters. And I was asking him to break it down. He said, "Ah, that's 10% of my business." And honestly, I don't make that much money off of it. I do that just because when I get a whole job from the adjuster, I make money on the renovation job and I do the mold as a throw in to help make them happy and help make them look good. And in there, I've learned not only where he makes his money, the percentage breakdown, but I've also learned what's important to him in his business and where he generates his leads, adjusters. So the beauty of these questions is that owners know this stuff cold. They live it every day. So you're not asking them for some technical insurance detail. You're getting them to talk about their business in their own language, and then you can translate that into insurance underwriting details. The next thing to probe are expenses, and there's a couple ways to approach this issue. One is you're going to understand the pain points of the business owner when you understand what they spend money on. So, for example, for a home health agency, about 50% of revenue goes directly to payroll, paying for caregivers. That is their product, that's their lifeblood. The quality of care they provide is their service, which means they're going to spend a lot of time and energy on that. The other way to think about expenses is if you have an operation with multiple services or product lines, you can either break it down by revenue streams or you can break it down by expenses. Where a business spends their money is very likely where they spend all their time and energy too. So, understanding a business's expenses is going to tell you a lot about who they are so you can translate it to an underwriter. The next thing to probe is leadership and corporate culture, and there are a couple angles here. First, as a broker, you want to align yourself with high performers, owners who are invested in their business and serious about growth. So I'll ask questions like, how do you lead? How do you make sure the job is done correctly? How do you attract the right people? The way they answer tells you a lot. Are they hands-on and engaged, or are they more of an absentee owner? Because I've seen both. I've seen organizations where the owner rarely shows up. Employees pick up on that. They're less emotionally invested, and the business stalls out, or sometimes has some really terrible things happen inside of it. Those owners usually become cost focused over time, and they don't look to their broker for growth advice. Contrast that with an engaged leader, the culture is stronger, the employees care more, and the business is usually on the move and growing. I'm telling you anecdotally, some of my largest accounts started small and grew 10 times. So, from an underwriting perspective, leadership and culture matter too. Underwriters want to know, is this owner invested in safety and training, in developing their people? Because all of that starts at the top. When you understand the leader's approach, you understand the tone of the entire business. After leadership, the next thing to probe is talent retention and hiring. And here's why: there's a direct correlation between turnover and claims. When a business constantly churns through employees, there's usually a deeper problem. Maybe the culture is bad, maybe the pay is low, maybe the management is toxic. And over time, that shows up in losses. In childcare, that could mean a serious injury. In construction, that could mean faulty work. On the flip side, if a childcare center tells me their staff has been there for 15 years, I know those people are locked in and know exactly what they're doing. That stability is huge, but retention isn't the whole story. I'll also ask, what's your strategy for attracting and developing new people? Because no turnover sounds nice, but if you're not bringing in fresh talent, you can't scale. Sometimes it's a sign that the business has plateaued, doesn't have the right people, or lacks good onboarding systems. And that's critical. A strong onboarding system is what it takes to bring a brand new hire and make them effective. That drives retention, improves quality, reduces claims, and ultimately makes the business a stronger account for underwriting. Once I understand the business's revenue, expenses, and people, the next thing I want to know is, what do they believe is their competitive advantage? What makes them stand out? And how do they sustain it? And how can they scale it? For example, I worked with an HVAC contractor who built his business around one niche: retail build outs for national chains. He already had industry connections, and he knew exactly how to deliver those stores cheaper, faster, and on schedule. That became his sustainable edge. He keeps winning repeat business because the GCs look good and the retailers open faster. From an underwriting perspective, this matters a lot. Businesses with a clear competitive advantage are healthier. They're not desperate to undercut prices, shortchange employees, or skip on safety. And if that advantage is scalable, it tells me the business can grow. And when they grow, my relationship and account value grow too. In this case, the HVAC owner is late in his career and content with where he is. But a younger entrepreneur with the same advantage could easily expand to more chains, more markets, more revenue. And because they have repeatable systems, they're usually safer and more insurable. That's the win win. You identify their edge, and both you and the underwriter see a stronger account. The last thing I'll ask is, what's your 5 year vision for the business? That one question tells you a lot. I had one client say, I don't want to grow anymore. I like it just the way it is. That tells me this account will be steady. No big upside, but also low downside. Another owner told me, Daryl, in 5 years, I want to be on a beach in South Carolina sipping Mai Tais. That guy has aggressive financial goals, but also means he may not be a long term account. He's building to cash out. And sometimes you'll hear, honestly, this market's tough. I don't know if I can make it. That tells me a completely different story. An owner who doesn't know how to compete, and that's a red flag. So when you hear about the 5-year vision, you're really learning about how they plan to grow, scale, or exit. It helps you set expectations for revenue, decide how to take care of them, and even whether they're the kind of account you really want to build with over the long term. And that's it. Those are the key subjects that I hit on when I interview somebody. If you follow that line of logic, add some more things in, you're going to get the owner to talk about their business in a way that's personal. That's also going to give you way more emotion and detail to share with an underwriter so you can help them put their best foot forward, but also help the owner feel like they're emotionally connecting to you. And that's when you win deals. Hey, if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments. I love it when you guys ask questions and I answer all of them. If this was helpful, hit like and subscribe. It helps other people like you find the content. And always, thank you so much for watching. Please go build something great.